S&P clears a critical level. Nasdaq erases all of 2022 losses. SOX holds above 500 but does not participate. We're going to explain why it did not participate today. Clear breakout of XLC. We're going to go through those names and what's driving that particular index to lead. The technology sector of the S&P hits an all-time high today. We're going to discuss why home builders are hitting all-time highs, the massive success of the CAVA IPO, some beaten down retail names that look like they're getting ready to turn around, Adobe's earnings and why it's pushing after hours. We have a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. Hey everybody, welcome back. I want to show you a proprietary indicator that I created and just walk you through what it's telling us. Now, these are clouds, and these clouds are set by EMAs, and they're set to certain levels. Now, the purple one is a short-term cloud, and this is a longer-term cloud. Okay, the middle is a 20 EMA. Now, I want to be clear, I don't use this to trade on a daily. I'll use it on a much larger time frame to get an understanding of what's going on, but to use it as a trigger, I use it on a much smaller time frame as a trigger. But for our purposes, what we're going to do is just focus on what it's telling us. Gold means sell, green means buy. And I just want to point out the difference so that you can see what the S&P looks like over the course of 22, where you had nothing but a gold reading the entire time, except for a little bit of hope here, and we all know what happens with hope, and then the continued decimation of the market, and then you flip right here. Since that flip, you've never gone lower if you take a look at the market. And again, I'm showing this because it's an indicator of what's going on, and I would use this as an indicator of health when I show it. I would not use it as an indicator to act or to say we're overbought or oversold, just an indicator of health. Here we were not very healthy. Here we are extremely healthy. The wider this is, the healthier we are. The wider this is, the worse we are. And you can see exactly how we acted there. Now, if you take a look at this, you look over the same period of time, just to put this in perspective, you can see when our last shift was. On a daily chart, you can see that we flip right here, and then we flip again right here. And you can see how that has marked a long trend. You could also see right here how this has marked a long-term trend. Again, I don't trade off of this, but I will use it for sentiment as to which way I should be leaning for this particular period in time. Until this reverses, I'm going to be net long, and I'm going to be looking at the market net long, and that is the purpose of me showing you this. And you might be saying, that's great, but what do I do with this? Well, I want you to understand it before I jump to the next screen. This is a weekly. Okay? This is what's happening now on the weekly chart. Okay, so again, two EMAs create this cloud. You can see the flip right here on the weekly. And what's happening this week? We're turning green. Okay, so we're finally starting to turn green on the weekly on the S&P. All right, we have not been green on the S&P on this indicator on the weekly for over a year. And you can see historically, if we look at this, how long are you usually green for? When you're here, it's a long period of time. A matter of fact, even during the pandemic, it didn't even turn gold. It did down here in 16, 17, but not even during the pandemic, maybe for a little bit, but it doesn't really even seem that way. We just went flat. Now, that's pretty substantial when this flips. And to me, this becomes a long-term buy signal. This is one piece of data, but this is a long-term buy signal. And I wanted to explain it so that you understand when I point this out what I'm looking at. And I cleared off the other portions because this is the portion that we're going to focus on. Now, in front of us is the Ichimoku cloud, and this is something also that I will use to get an understanding of what's going on. It's not as complicated as it looks. I actually did a whole video on it, and it was pretty much my most popular educational video. I will link it so that you can see it. But there's only really one part of it that I want to focus on, and give me a second here, and we're going to just color this in so that you can see this really clear and not have to strain. So really what you're looking for is you're looking for these crosses. And when these crosses happen, that's what you want to focus on for our purposes of this. I'll link that Ichimoku video at the end so that you can watch this and learn more about it. But what you want to do is focus on these crosses. So I just want to point out that I have another, quote, buy signal going on. These are one data point. It does not mean you're going to go up every single day. But what it does mean, and I want to just point this out, and this does not go off of EMAs. Just watch that video if you're interested. I actually did 2 videos on it. One links to the other. But the purpose of me showing you this is not EMAs. This is not made over moving averages. This was an indicator that was created by a guy that took over 3 decades to create. So when it triggers, I pay attention to it. And if you just take a look here, and I just want to show you this, that's a 10-year snapshot, okay? You have never had a period of time where you've been like this on the market. In 10 years, you've had this little spot here. Now, if we went back to the GFC, you can see that spot right there, right? But I want you to just understand where we are and what's happening, because you're seeing a lot of people out there, especially on social media, that really have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, that have been trading from about this period of time or started maybe a year or two ago, and they've been trading from here, and all they know is whack-a-mole, or all they know is the pandemic 1.7 trillion. And even if you've been trading for, let's say, 10 years, right? All you really know is zero interest rates. So just to be clear, you don't have zero interest rates anymore. We don't have a pandemic, thank God, and we don't have 1.7 trillion injected in the market. So it's going to be up to you as a trader to understand the macro, fundamental, and technical moves that are going to happen, because it's not a question of don't fight the Fed anymore if they're not going to do anything. And I think that's an important distinction. So what I'm going over here are 2 tools that are clearly giving a buy signal long-term on the S&P. Do with that what you will. I will tell you that Ichimoku Cloud, when utilized properly, is probably one of the most glaring indicators that I've used in 2 decades of trading. And I use it when we trend. When we don't trend, we're trending now, obviously. When we don't trend, I don't use it as much. Now, let's just talk about the NQ and what's going on here. The reality is starting to set in for a lot of people that this is the only period of time that they have left where they could talk about being bearish. Okay. Other than that, there's nothing here. There's literally nothing here anymore. We're above all of 22 except for like a small spot right here. And that's it. But mostly the Nasdaq is above all of 22 in the futures market. There's very little to do here. I just want to point something out, because we keep hearing about the breath, the breath, the breath. You have a ton of zombie companies that are never coming back, okay? So the breath is not going to be that great. The breath of the Nasdaq 100 stocks above the 200-day moving average has been building a flag and getting stronger. This is 77% of these names, or now 78% of these names of the Nasdaq 100 are above their 200-day moving average. This is important for us to understand, okay? If we take a look at this from the standpoint of the S&P, stocks above the 200-day moving average, 50%, 56% are above. Now, reminder, you have quad witching tomorrow. 4 asset classes expire. Okay, that's going to be a huge deal. You're going to see huge volatility off the open. Then we're going to go flat. Then towards the end of the day, it will start to pick up again. The reason that it starts off wild, and it will start off wild, usually starts off, pretty crazy. You'll start seeing movements like this up or down, and then you'll start getting tighter and tighter and tighter as they play arbitrage with 4 asset classes until about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And then you'll see either significantly up or significantly down how they want to hedge themselves. Now, the interesting thing about tomorrow and quad witching is that, and this usually is the first half hour to 45 minutes where you're this wild, and then it gets really slow and boring, except individual names that aren't related. Now, on top of quad witching, we are closed on Monday. So you could actually see tomorrow being a really light day and people just throwing in the towel very early here and just saying, you know what, I'll pick this all up on Tuesday. I had a great week, and they just move forward. So something to think about, something that we're going to be paying attention to. I think it's really important to mention that the tech sector right here is you're already over where you were during the bear market. Okay, you're already over where you were during the bear market, which means that Apple is hitting all-time highs. We're in this in the Alpha Chasers community, doing pretty well with it, quite frankly. A couple people reached out because they did not get their invitations. If you're on the wait list, they should be going out. Just bear with me. I need to get everybody situated that joins. It's very different than most groups that people join. We keep it small on purpose. So just give it some time, but I will get to it, and I will get to people on the wait list. So here you come straight across, right? Look at that 348 today. I mean, that does not get more obvious. So just to be clear, that is a breakout. That is an absolute clear breakout, okay? And I'm just going to walk through it. People are saying, oh, well, that must be it. That's the big move. Now, the way that this works is when these moves start, they're forming cups. Now, most people will say, well, that can't be a cup. And the reason they'll say it can't be a cup is because it's just too big, right? It's too big of a cup. I don't really understand what that means, right? So if you have a curve here, then you have a curve, okay? You might not like the size of it. You might feel some type of way about the curve for whatever reason. Mostly it's probably because people miss them, but that's there, okay? And all you're doing is getting back to where you were a year and a half ago. You're not even over that price, right? You follow me? You're just getting over that price. So the way that I use this for target practice is I put upper channels in, and then I'll use those upper channels as ways to determine where we could get to. You think you can't get up here, you're wrong. People thought you weren't going to get up to here, and look at what happened, and look where you were. So I'm not really sure why. There it goes. Let me do that one. So you're going to want to pay attention to this, okay? And I do think that we could keep moving, okay? People will say, well, it's just the valuations. How are you going to get there? Look, this entire market, and I, again, would strongly suggest you spend some time and listen to the Druckenmiller Bloomberg call. And you listen to this, and you pay attention. And you have a guy there that's been investing for 4 decades telling you that this is the biggest thing that he's seen or has the potential to be the biggest thing that he's seen since .com. And then go look at his returns during .com and see if you want to second guess him, right? The guy's an absolute genius when it comes to investing. Probably one of the top 3 or 4 in the world, quite frankly. So when he speaks, I would pay attention to him. I would pay attention to him more than I would pay attention to social media and what people there are saying. Just throwing that out there. You might want to spend the time and learn that. I really can't stress it enough. I really do believe that you're seeing an opportunity here that you might see once every 10 or 20 years. And if you don't get this, understand that .com, when we saw this kind of move with Intel, and it was hundreds of billions of dollars, this move, this was all consumer driven, all right? Let's be realistic about this when we look at NVIDIA, and let's understand something. And I understand that looks like a ski slope to most people. That is something that is, quote, completely unsustainable. And I want to be real clear about this. You can absolutely pull back. You could absolutely pull back 100 points easily, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to get people to understand is this is not consumer driven. This is corporation driven, right? You start looking at companies like SMCI, they have computers that are $130,000. Okay, no one's putting that in their house, picking one of those up at Walmart, right? That's a real business. You look at NVIDIA, they have a supercomputer that's on the cloud that you can rent for $70,000 a month. Well, who's going to rent that, do you think? I don't know, maybe every single biotech company that wants to get an edge. So that's why Goldman is saying that you're looking at close to $6.7 trillion in productivity in 10 years. And if you want to bet against that, that's fine. I'm looking at this multiple years, and I would suggest that you do the same. You don't have to, but it's there. Oracle was another one we looked at today and did quite well with. It was very clear that we broke out. I actually went over this with this video yesterday, if you were paying attention. I would just tell you that all these videos are linked. So if you're watching one video, they're all linked. All the titles, everything is linked, right? What you'll note here is that I'm not trying to just put content out to put content out. Everything is linked and everything is actionable. It's very different. And I do appreciate you sharing. It does show me that the sharing is happening via the algorithm. They keep a record of it. It's kind of cool, really. But I just want to go through this. We walked through this the other day, and anybody could do this, and this is something that you could learn yourself. When you undercut, like you did here, we were talking about this in the Alpha Chasers community, but I did go over it last night as well. When you undercut like you did right here, and then they rip it like that, it was abundantly clear that that was just a setup to get retail out of the name. And you can see that it's just the spike in volume. And then as soon as they did that, what'd they do? They ripped it. And then you got this bar, right? Let me show you the bar. So then you got this bar on the hourly. Then what happened with that bar? You formed a flag. Then what happened with the flag? It broke out. I mean, this was just a really simple trade for us today. And I think we're up $3.5, $4 on Oracle already, which is pretty insane considering the move that it's had. And who knows what happens with quad witching tomorrow, but watch that and maybe replay what I just went over. There's a bunch of names to go over, so we're going to drill into them here, and I really want to hammer some things home. But it's really important for you to get the fact that the technology sector of the S&P is at all-time highs, right? So if someone's telling you that we're not in a bull market, just tell them that. See how they respond to it. If they seem to have some kind of meltdown, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. All right, so if you take a look here at LEN, it's a pretty clean breakout, pretty clean volume, excellent report, very little to say. Understand a couple things that are happening with these kinds of names. 50% of all mortgages are at 3% or under. Those people are never getting out of those houses. They are never getting that rate again. They're talking about their rate at parties because it's like almost like a feat, and God bless them for getting it. But we're never going to see those again, right? So they're not moving. Now there's talk of trying to make a mortgage transferable. We'll see how that goes. If that happens, I would expect the dynamics to change drastically and not in the favor of home builders. But you had 5 million or 5.8 million of a home shortage, okay? And you have 5.8 million home shortage, and now you have this whole group of people that are not selling their houses. And now the shift, if you go take a look at the data from the National Home Builders Association, the shift is more towards new homes than existing homes. Well, that's a big change. So these names have a lot of room to run. This is the exact pattern I was just talking about, where you're forming a cup and everyone's saying, oh, well, that clearly that must be the end of it. And I'm going to say, no, you have these channels here. And I'm not saying you're going to hit them on a Tuesday. I'm saying that you need to look at these as possible target ranges. This is one way to determine a possible target. I could go through others if you're interested. Comment below and we'll do that. But I have a bunch of stuff to go through here. I was pretty vocal about this one the other day. Okay, that this is setting up. These people are going to get squeezed. Do not buy stocks with high short interest unless you're going to trade them in and out, because you never know when something's going to happen. There could still be a catalyst, right? So if you're going to trade these, you have to trade them. And then what you want to do is make sure that you're not shorting them, okay? And when they came out with that news, it became quite clear. You came back, you retested, you broke out, and it's acting great. There's very, very little to do with this right now. But just understand that there still could be a catalyst to the downside, okay? So with these kinds of names, I like to trim when they spike up, and then what I do with them is then I just will put a stop out there, usually a break even, or if I see something technically on like an hourly, I'll get out of the way. And the reason I'm telling you this is I think that this does have massive potential. If what they're saying is accurate, I really do believe this has massive potential. And I'm surprised it's not really spilling over. Well, there he goes, finally starting to spill over into KMX and some other of these names, because they're talking about the market, how it's getting stronger and how it's getting hotter. And we can see that. UPST is one that we've been playing around with and we've done quite well with. We got in the 20s. I think we're up about 40, 45% at this point. I just want to point this out because this is glaring to me, okay? See this line right here, right? See where you rejected? And I just want to point out where this is really going. That's really where you're at, okay? So this 38.5, you're going to want to watch 38.50 if you're playing UPST. If you're not in UPST yet and you clear this doji, I doubt very highly that this is going to hold you back now, okay? And we can take a look at that and we can dive into it very, very clearly. All we'd have to do is just go here and just click on, let's find it. It'll be down here, I think. Volume by price, 9 EMA. And let's dig into that, okay? So if we're looking at that sector and we're looking at that flip that I'm talking about, right, and we go back 52 weeks, how significant is that spot there? Okay, it's nothing once you're through that 38.47. Call it 38.50, but that's your level and that's what I would be watching. Now, I'm going to just point out something, and you're going to see this a lot. See these levels up here where you're at like 88, 90 on the RSI, and I know a lot of people don't use RSI, and that's fine. You should use what you're comfortable with, right? I pointed out a bunch of tools tonight. Some you can use, some you probably won't be able to use unless but it doesn't really matter. The point is, find things that you're comfortable using, okay? That you are comfortable using, not that other people are. But I look at RSI, and not the fact that I have to do something, but I understand that when I'm up here, that there will be a time when we're going to correct. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that I'm at 280 and I'm going to correct to 255. But I do know that it means that I'm going to have some kind of correction out there, right? Or if I'm going to correct from 256 to 200, I don't know. But I know that the possibility of a correction is greater as this goes higher, because the magnitude can only go so high as it can just only go so low, right? When you understand what these are, you can start utilizing them better. You can use them better when you understand what they are, is the best way that I can explain it. So I like them. I don't see any reason to panic because we didn't hit or close at a new all-time high today on the video. I don't see a reason to panic with the SOX because we didn't make a new all-time high. We are rotating, as I just showed you. So that's a really important distinction. Also, I like the fact that we have not made the higher high on the SOX and just go sideways. As long as you stay above 500 on the SOX, I am absolutely fine with the way that it's acting. Now, we should probably spend a little time and go through Adobe. The quarter was good. I'm not going to waste everyone's time on it. You can read it yourself. You are trading after hours and you are trading up, and this is previously before the conference call, and I certainly have not listened to it yet. So you can see that you're up after hours. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Again, quad witching. I read the report. They raised guidance a little bit. I didn't think it was that great of a report. But nonetheless, it's up. If I was long this, I would probably be taking profits tomorrow personally. But I don't know. I don't know how this plays out or how that fever is going to play out. And it's definitely something to pay attention to. I do want to just kind of point out some things. Okay, I put this on Twitter as well. This is something that we bought in the community. You know, when you start seeing these trough levels of like RSI 14, they're not actual buys until they trigger. I did a whole video. It's on here somewhere on the RSI and how the RSI flips, and you use this as your trigger. So you can see right here, once we flipped, boom, it became our trigger, and we were able to get in here, and now we're up and in this trade, and it looks great. I think I can at least get a back test of 472 here, so I think there's room here. I also want to point this one out. Okay, and you can see what's happening right in here as well. So I do like this name, and it is definitely one that I'm watching again. Okay, it's just so funny. I mean, all it does is just have earnings and get smoked, then have earnings and do great, and then have earnings, right? And then it gets smoked, and then it pops up. I mean, it's like badminton, right? It's just crazy. CAVA. So people are out there saying, well, this is definitely a sign of froth. Look, they IPO'd it at 20. There's been 8 IPOs in the past 12 months, something insane like that. They had to price this thing really, really cheap for obvious reasons because they didn't know what the demand was going to be. Allocation was through the roof. We priced at 20 or 22, doubled. We actually found an entry in right here, and we're able to play with this today. I did fairly well with it. I think I made 5 or 6 points. And then when you got to the top of that wick, you could see clearly how it rejected. So as always, please comment on this video and share them. I purposely do not run ads, so I don't waste your time. I get asked all the time to sponsor get sponsors. I have zero interest in doing that. I just want to educate. All I ask is that you share it. So it's really important to me that people learn what it takes to truly be successful at trading. Have a good night. Trade to win.